tech issues here.
Okay, glad you're on. Okay, let's get right to it. I do have a hard stop at the top of the hour. So, Teddy, thank you so much for joining me. And, what a timely topic. First of all, congratulations also on your announcement for candidacy for lieutenant governor. I believe you're the only Republican that's in the race right now. Am I correct?
No, there's actually a 10-person field.
Oh, wow. Okay.
10-person field, but we are actually, believe it or not, we are leading the field. The other 9 people are folks that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, so that's great. So
yeah.
you're the best known candidate and pretty much the only one that's showing up when I do a search. So that's a good thing.
I guess that's a good thing, right?
But the topic that we're going to discuss today is really something that's I've covered in a lot of previous articles around just the abuse that's going on in the schools. It's just like the liberals and the left, they get a little bit of power and they just go crazy to the point that they're putting masking tape to put on masks on the children. I mean, that's ridiculous. So first of all, tell us about that situation. I know it's in your state. Is it in the do you live in that county or is it just in your state?
No, actually, that's down in the area in the southeast. I actually grew up down there. So okay. That school district I'm familiar with. And I hate to say it, that's a heavy blue area. Brother, my youngest son is 4 years old. Okay. And up where I am in the northeast part of the state, it's all red. And even the schools here had the mask mandates. So, when we heard that, we yanked, he was supposed to start preschool. We yanked him. It's not going to happen. I'm not putting a mask on my son because of this perceived fear that's going on. And like this affects children at a much lower percentage than it affects adults. Why do this to the kids?
Right. It's an overboard. And what they're doing too is trying to expand the definition of COVID and get more and more people under that and have, this fear that, kids are now able to contract it, even animals, which was such a joke to me when they had to make a big deal out of the case. But, there are people dying. So there are, I have my opinions on it, but, you have healthy 17-year-old athletes in high school that are dropping dead. I believe it's due to probably the vaccines.
That's my belief as well.
What are your thoughts around that?
So, okay. So I was an All-American high school football. Went to college on a football scholarship. And let me tell you, that was back in the day where coaches would push you and push you and push you until you passed out, puked, whatever the case may be.
Yes.
We didn't have anybody die. Never had anybody die. You thought you were going to die, but nobody died. Yes. And to see these stories across the country, and even back then, you would see them occasionally, like a kid out in Texas or a kid out in Oklahoma had a heart attack on the middle of the field and died. But those were very rare and extreme cases. And it seems now more and more since the fear and the vaccine, you're seeing more and more young people develop conditions and heart issues. And I've been reading a lot where they're getting water or fatty tissue around the heart from these vaccines. So, do I, and don't get me wrong, I am not anti-vax. I'm not anti-mask. It's your choice if you choose to do that. I'm anti-government overreach. I'm anti-institutional overreach with these masks and vaccines.
And that's where, it really gets to the heart of the parent, child, and teacher relationship here, especially with this
Yes.
case, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, it seems these days that these schools are doing these things without the consent of parents. They're just ramrodding their agenda through. And, what was fascinating about this situation was when it was called out, the school did apologize and did kind of, say, we're going to address this issue. So what are your thoughts about that reaction? Because I could see, I'll tell you, I'm in California, and in California, I think they would be unapologetic about it and
You're
just say,
behind enemy
well,
lines,
it's all
brother.
for the safety.
You're behind enemy lines over there.
Yes.
Okay.
It's terrible.
That's where you are. And so I compare it to any other type of, and let's be honest, teachers, I consider them public servants. There's millions of great teachers out there. It's an honorable profession, just like law enforcement. Now, when a cop does something like that, it's headline news.
Right.
Okay? When a cop acts inappropriately, it is headline news. Why is it not headline news for these teachers? And I feel that the teachers' unions have way too much power in what goes on. I've seen it, brother. I've helped a couple dozen women in the state run for school boards. They were moms. They did not like what was going on in the schools. Gave them my platform, worked polls for them, knocked doors for them. The only pushback I got from anybody was from teachers in the teachers union.
Yes.
Because they knew which members of the school board they had in their pocket. So they're worried about their upcoming contracts. They're worried about getting pushback from the school board if they want to go to remote learning again, because they know that these moms weren't having it at all. So the pushback I got was from the teachers unions, not from other candidates.
What a great story. And, I was actually had prepared this on my notes, but it's so funny. It's almost like you read my mind. But I was thinking that after I read about this story, I was thinking that teachers should be wearing body cams the way cops do. They should be wearing, we entrust our children who are impressionable, young, very sensitive, and we don't know what's going on with them 8 hours a day. And these teachers are able, and, we saw a little bit of that with the shutdowns with pandemic and Zoom. But I mean, this situation is really kind of a parent's worst nightmare. I really don't want my kid to be rough handled or have a masking tape put on their mask to put it on. That's
ridiculous. And I agree with you to a point on that. But then again, the other side of that is how far into an Orwellian world do we want to go? Brother, I'm an older guy. Back when I went to school, like, these kind of issues didn't happen. And when I was young, when I was like this kid's age in this video, I went to Catholic school. All right. The nuns had no problem pulling a yardstick and smacking the shit out of you with it. They had no problem doing it. That was allowed. And if you came home and, mom or dad saw the red marks on your butt, they knew that sister so-and-so got you because you were acting a fool in the classroom. Okay. Now, again, different time, different world. I get that. I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer, but I know I'm sounding like a boomer right now. And I just think that the abuse that these teachers do to these kids now, mentally, psychologically, I believe parents have a right to know what goes on in the classrooms. I don't know if cameras or body cams is the answer.
Extreme case.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you, but there needs to be a way for the parents to know. And you're absolutely right. During this pandemic, when none of the teachers wanted to work, and you see what's happening in Chicago with the teachers' unions not wanting to go back into the classrooms. Okay.
Right.
They are the ones dictating the policy. They have too much power. What we need to do is go back to a school choice. School choice. Send your kids to the school you want to send them to. That's what we need to do. You know, and there's so many different things that surround that. And you look at how these teachers get paid. And that's why I compared them to law enforcement, because they get paid on tax dollars.
Right.
They get paid on school taxes, property taxes. That's how they get paid. So they need to stop being accountable to the teachers' unions and start being accountable to the community.
Oh, yeah. So I'm a big believer in school choice. I'm actually the lead proponent for the only school choice initiative we're going to push through on the ballot for November 2022 here to provide school choice in California. So what's going on is, we want to take $14,000 every year and basically put it in an educational savings account. If you want to use it for public school, great. If you want to use it for charter school, great too, or private school or homeschool. So that is our legislation is very ambitious, and every state is very different in where they're at on the availability of school choice. Where is Pennsylvania at? And, you know, if you're a lieutenant governor, what would you plan to do or usher the legislature to do?
So we're actually going to start to get legislation pushed for school choice. They don't have it right now in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So, and that's one of the key things that we need to do. And if you take a look, this past 2 years of 15 days to flatten the curve, okay, we're in it 2 years now. 2 years, brother.
Pathetic.
That's like a buddy coming to me saying, "Hey, man, I'm having a rough time. Can I borrow your car? I need it for 15 days. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, take it." 2 years have gone by, and he can't give me a reason why he still has my car. All right. So many people, so many parents have just been fed up with the school boards, the school systems, these out of control teachers unions, that more and more people are doing homeschooling here in Pennsylvania. My wife and I actually even discussed, you know, getting together in the next couple of years with other parents who are looking to homeschool their children. And it's like a group of people, that we can trust, and we can all do this together, because I still feel that kids need interaction with other kids. They need that. That's how they grow socially. That's how they grow mentally. That's how they grow physically, is interaction and playing and learning with other kids. What we're raising now is a generation of children who will have zero social skills.
Already happening.
Exactly. It's happening. So we need to make that a priority. And that's one of the things that we're looking to do. And you know, I think the school choice program takes a lot of the power away from these teachers unions. And as you know, even federally, these teachers unions have been behind the scenes dictating the CDC guidelines.
That's right.
And I've come out and said already, there are so many young, qualified people graduating school who have a degree in elementary or secondary education. If these union teachers don't want to work, fire them all.
Right.
Fire them all. Hire new teachers.
Yeah.
It's so funny because have an issue right now in Northeast PA to where it came out like 3 days before Christmas break that the rest of the school year was going to go remote. So here we are in the middle of one of the worst economies we've seen in a long time. Here we are in a situation to survive in today's economy, you need a 2-income family. Right. And now schools with maybe 10 days notice said it's going to be remote learning. So now what that ends up doing is bringing a parent out of the workforce and back into the home, if it's a younger kid, for the homeschooling, for the online schooling.
Right.
So families are already hurting, and now you're cutting their household income in half because of the teachers' unions. That's a problem.
Yeah, and that's and the bottom line is teachers have forgotten what their fundamental job is, right? They're stuck on their indoctrination agenda, and their and you hear this callous talk sometimes about, their entitlements on benefits here. California is really bad. CTA is probably one of the worst here.
I'm sure.
Where you just have entitlements gone wild. Superintendents getting paid $300,000 a year. I mean, this is the type of stuff we're fighting here in the worst of the worst, right? But Pennsylvania, it's interesting to hear that there's commonality in those problems. It's really pervasive across the board in all of America and all of the states.
It is.
The teachers are not role models. We should have teachers from all sorts of different professions come in, teach shop, teach home ec, teach all the things that they've dropped out of our education just to cram down liberal arts. Like, you're not going to have a great country when there's no manufacturing, there's no varied skill sets, when everyone's reading Shakespeare. I mean, I think that's a disservice we're doing. So what do you, when you run, and I know, a lot of getting out there is also like a community activist message that you're doing. And I've seen that about, around what you're doing. What do you hope to communicate to the community? And I see you're already ushering moms to run for office. I love that. Anything else you're doing out there that's, to tackle this problem?
So I'm actually a big proponent of trade schools. My father, I don't come from money. Okay. My father didn't come from money. He grew up poor, and he was able to go to school after high school. And back in the day, it used to be called the Williamson Free School of Trade. Now they just call it Williamson Trade School. And he learned how to be a stonemason. So my father was a stonemason during his career. And I, when I went to school, it was go to school, get good grades, do what they tell you what to do, go to college, and then go work for somebody else and make him money. Okay. The one thing they never taught me, brother, I was an entrepreneur when I left law enforcement in the military. I started a very, very, very large security firm and cash transportation company. My first company I took public in 8 months. I started it with $5,000. Okay. I didn't have a business background. I didn't have a business degree, but these are all things I kind of had to learn on the fly. And back when I grew up, if you didn't go to college and get a 4-year degree, you were a dumbass. That's kind of what they said. And again, my father, if you look at what tradesmen are making today compared to college grads who can't find anything in their field, or they graduate school and they expect to hop into a management position making $100,000 a year, because they have a college degree. Back in the day, a college degree meant something. But now everybody has one. You know what means something now? A skill, a trade, a craft. That's what means something now. You look at professions like underwater welders, okay, stonemasons, pipe fitters, okay, even carpenters. These guys make more money than guys with master's degrees. And but back in school, it was, you have to go to college. No, you don't want to go to the tech school with the dummies. You got to go to college. But the guys in tech school, boy, they're making some cash now.
Right. It's supply and demand.
Exactly. And even my son, even my youngest, I kind of don't want him to go to the liberal indoctrinated university. don't want it to happen. You know, this boy, and again, it's going to be what he chooses to do. But I'd love if he learned a trade and learned how to do something. Right. Brother, when I worked as a cop, okay, and here's a problem where education and policing kind of meshed. So a lot of police departments I became a cop in 97, and I did 15 years. Probably about 10 years in, probably I'd say 2005, 2006, a lot of agencies were requiring a 4-year degree, okay, to even apply for the department.
Yeah.
And what was happening is we were getting guys with accounting degrees, guys with liberal arts degrees. And, you know, we'd ask him, man, well, why do you want to be a cop? He goes, well, the money's not too bad, and I can't find anything in my field. So here's a trend that has happened. You take a look at cities like Philadelphia or Baltimore, for example, okay? Even high crime areas. You have guys that went to college. They have a 4-year degree. And then they come work in law enforcement. And then these guys have to go patrol some of the lower economic neighborhoods. They can't relate to these folks.
Yes.
There's no people skills. You can't talk to them. And these guys are so by the book, where a guy like me, like it was easy. Like, man, I grew up poor. And I was like, yo, brother, I got you. Like, me and you are on the same level, you know? So I think that's where, and around the time frame, to where a lot of law enforcement agencies started to get into a lot of trouble with shootings that shouldn't have happened,
right?
With use of force issues that shouldn't have happened, because you're bringing these kids in out of college thinking that it's like chips, okay? Yeah. And you put them in a bad neighborhood, and it's not a neighborhood they came from. They didn't grow up that way. You can't take a white kid from the suburbs and put him in the projects in North Philly. You can't do it and expect him to be successful. They're setting the community up for disaster, and they're setting the department up for disaster.
Yeah.
But again, everybody put these high education requirements on these positions. And that's what's happening. And I think everything ties back into the educational system. I think that is the foundation to where we can fix so many problems in our country.
I agree. There's so much, it's affluenza, right? Like you said, you can relate growing up poor. It really is not about race anymore. It is about socioeconomic status. And that's a thing that, you know, I think the left keeps forgetting and tries to push. And it just doesn't, you know, I think people are seeing through the left's narrative now, because it's not holding true when, you know, when you look in the real world, and those of us that are in the community that are doing stuff, not just sitting at home and listening to the news all day and getting indoctrinated there, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, like someone like you can be very effective in going into the inner city and relating mano to mano to, you know, the Black and Hispanic demographics there. But, you know, yes, you can't learn this stuff in a textbook.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And you know, the thing too, this is funny. I got to bring this up. It was about 3 years ago. My wife and I, we were coming from a friend's house, and it was summertime. It was hot, man. It was hot. And we passed this car on the side of the road, and these folks were in their, I'd say, early to mid 20s. Okay. You have a guy standing at the back of the car with his hands on his hips, and his girlfriend changing a flat tire.
Oh my God.
But my wife knows, like, if there's ever anybody on the side of the road that needs help, she pulls over because she knows I'm the guy that's got to get out and help. So I go back, and the guy's standing there, and I'm like, hey, you guys good? Do you need help? He's like, yeah, I don't know how to do this. And she looks at him, and she looks at me. She goes, my dad was a mechanic, and this guy doesn't know how to change a tire. I said, listen, you guys are on the side of the road, okay? It's hot. Let me get this for you, okay? And he stood there, and I made him come down here. I said, come here. I'm going to teach you something today. Okay? You know, this is a lug wrench. These are lugs. This is the order that you put the jack under the car, loosen the lugs, take the tire off, put the spare on, and then you want to do a star pattern with the lugs, okay? And I felt, and my wife, I get back in the car, I'm cut, like my shirt like is soaking wet from the sweat and everything else. And my wife's like, let me guess, the guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. I said, no, he didn't, but I hopefully I gave him a lesson. And I think I embarrassed him in front of his girlfriend. So I think that's what it takes. I mean, the simple stuff, they don't teach you, like brother, I'm old. I use a checkbook, okay? They don't teach you how to balance a budget. They don't teach you how to use a checkbook. Home ec, brother, I'm 6'4", 300 pounds. I played Division I football. I was a special weapons operator and a narcotics officer in a police department. And then I fought in Afghanistan as an infantryman. And I sew. Okay? Do I look like the type of guy who can sit behind a sewing machine? I sew. I repair my own clothes with a needle and thread. Like, I love it. And I don't fit that stereotype. But I took home ec in school. Okay? Because I was forced to. Not because I wanted to, but I was forced to. And I learned how to do certain things that they are not even teaching in the curriculum in schools today.
And you probably also had shop, right, Teddy?
I did. I had shop. Yeah. And again, so I kind of grew up with that. They took that out.
Yeah. They don't want us working on our cars. They don't want the freedom that we could have with that. Everything has to be, you know, and that's what worries me about the electric cars. They can just shut that down any second that they want.
Anytime they want. Brother, I drive a big lifted diesel pickup truck, 4-door long bed. Okay. You will never, ever, 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 ever see me in an electric car.
Yeah.
Whether they're mandated or not. Not going to do it. As long as I can get diesel fuel, I'm driving my truck.
But Teddy, you are what makes America great, right? And that is what is being attacked by these urban liberal media that's constantly going after and trying to cancel people like you. Absolutely. And, you know, that is the reason the MAGA movement happened. The white male that is freedom oriented and can do their own stuff, that prototype has been attacked for years and years, almost decades.
I'll tell you why. The left attacked masculinity first,
right?
Because they knew that a nation of strong men would never stand for what's happening today in this country.
Correct.
That's why they attacked masculinity first.
It was very subtle. It was a drip, drip, drip. And here we are today where they just come up and mask Nazi you. I'm sorry, sir. The mask needs to be below your nose or above your nose. I mean, it's just getting so ridiculous. For you.
During this entire pandemic, I didn't wear a mask once. I refused to do it. And I would go to the dollar store, okay? And I got into it one time because, again, I'm 6'4", I'm 300 pounds, I'm covered in tattoos. Most people aren't going to approach me and say, put your mask on. Right. And I know that. So I never wore one, okay? And I went into the dollar store. I had to get something for my little boy. And I went in there, and there's this woman. She must have been about 400 pounds. And she had the little carry shopping basket filled with Cheetos. Okay? Now, dude, I wish I can make this up. She comes around the front, puts her hand on where her hip should be, and she goes, you need to put a mask on. You're a danger to everybody in this store. I looked at her, and I said, hey, lady, if you thought for 1 second that this virus is as deadly as you're trying to tell me it is, You just risked your life for a cart full of Cheetos. Think about that. If this was as bad as you're saying it is, why are you risking it to buy Cheetos? And then I told her, I said, listen, me not wearing a mask is not your health issue.
Right.
You have your own health issues that you need to worry about. Don't you worry about me.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So, like, and again, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't. That's cool. This is America. That's freedom. Who am I to judge?
But don't tell me what to do.
Don't force your stuff on me.
Yeah.
Okay? And the big issue is these freaking people. They're inside a gas station with a mask on, buying scratch-off lottery tickets. Okay? And I go in and I don't have a mask, and they look, you don't have your mask on. I said, guys, if you're afraid, let the lottery tickets go. Stay home.
Right.
Your fear will not impede on my freedom. I just refuse to let it happen. You don't like it? Tough shit.
It's getting harder and harder when the society is buying into all the fear. That's the issue. And are you seeing a change, at least in Pennsylvania? Are you seeing that people are becoming frustrated with all of these? You know, for example, let's have a fourth booster shot now because there's a million different variants of COVID and we can't trust our immune systems. So we're just going to keep creating untested vaccines or untested jabs just to look like and virtue signal that we're being part of some sort of solution when the whole solution is trusting your immune system anyways, right?
Exactly. And I am seeing a lot of that. And about a month ago, I was in New York City. Oh, I hate going to New York City. I was driving in New York City, and, you know, you look over on each side of, you know, people in cars by themselves,
with
windows
masks.
up,
with
wearing
masks.
a mask.
It's so common in California.
And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, brother, I'm thinking to myself, man, you know, like our ancestors hunted bears with sticks, okay? And you're so afraid of a virus with a 99.98% survival rate that you're wearing a mask in your car. Thank
Which is
God
getting weirder by the day.
These people, yes. Thank God these people were not walking the earth 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 years ago, because society would have never gotten built.
Yeah.
Would have never gotten built. And now here's the thing. Again, brother, I may have that internal judgment. I would never put the window down and say, yo, you know, take the freaking mask off, because that's their choice. But if they said something to me for not wearing a mask, that's when I fire back. Okay?
Sure.
And honestly, think about this. Our ancestors hunted bears with sticks.
Right.
And here we are now as a society. Okay? Taping masks to kids' faces because they're afraid of catching a cold.
Yes. And what a sad way to live, right? I mean, I think this really goes into, if you make government your God, and now the government is telling you that the world is a very unsafe place to live, and you really trust the government that much, you will be a person that will wear a mask while your windows are rolled up and you're driving around town. That is the fundamental.
Do they wear a mask in the shower?
Yeah. How about the guy that was swimming that had a mask on? Remember this one?
That
was my favorite.
With gloves. I saw that too. With the gloves. Okay? And I'm thinking to myself, you know, these plexiglass barriers at like cashiers and stuff. Okay? This is an airborne virus. Like, wow. So the virus just won't go around? It'll just stop right there in the plexiglass saying, shit, can't go no further. Okay? In Pennsylvania, our Democrat governor said, you have to wear a mask in a restaurant, but you can take it off to sit down and eat. So it's like, okay, so COVID knows that I'm in the lobby. But once I'm sitting down, COVID won't get me there. Okay? And then he banned all alcohol sales to try and shut the bars down. Unless you had food with your beer. So if you went to a bar and ordered a beer, COVID was going to get you. But if you had a plate of hot wings in front of you, you were completely safe. So I think the cure to COVID is just place hot wings everywhere, because you're completely safe with a beer and hot wings. But if you just have a beer, COVID's going to kill you. Do you see the insanity?
It's so arbitrary. And it's just like making rules just to look like you're doing something, which is a problem with government. I think people are getting tired of that. I think that's why Edward Durr got elected in New Jersey with, what was it, like $9,000 when it was all said and done. He won a Senate seat against a guy that won against millions last time. I mean, really.
It's got to be the right person. It's got to be the right person. And I'll tell you this, the problem, and I can speak on behalf of my experiences with the Republican Party, okay? I do not fit their mold of what they feel a candidate should be. I fire at the party every chance I get. And I've never seen in my time a place in history to where the party was here and the people are over here. There's never been such a big disconnect between the party and the people. And, you know, I could speak on like the PA GOP, the Pennsylvania GOP. I have them shitting their pants right now because, I'm not a pay-to-play guy, and the Pennsylvania GOP is a pay-to-play. Like, they have these caucuses now to where you have the Central Caucus, Northeast, Southeast, Northwest, Southwest in the state, to where you have to go and you give a 3-minute speech in front of, you know, the chosen committee members in that area. And then they all cast a vote to see if you're worthy of being their endorsed candidate. I came right out and said, PA GOP, stick it up your ass. I don't want your endorsement. I'm not a backroomed, grease-palmed, side deal type of guy. I don't have corporate donors. All of my money that I brought in, and I brought in a big chunk of money. 98% of my donors are $200 and under.
The grassroots.
I'm not for sale. And I have no problem coming out and calling out the party whenever I need to. I actually just got an email today that at their big state convention on the 3rd and 4th, the last day of the convention, there's going to be a lieutenant governor's forum. And the qualifications to be eligible to participate in the lieutenant governor's forum. 1, you have to be registered as a candidate through the Department of State. Cool. Check. 2, you have to be a sponsor of the winter meeting, okay, to be eligible. And 3, you need 10 letters from state committee people to be eligible to be part of this forum. And tomorrow, because I'm banned for 24 hours on Facebook again, tomorrow I am ripping into them. And I'm going to say, hey, PAGOP, tell me that you're pay to play without telling me you're pay to play. Let's see. You can be part of this forum, but you have to sponsor.
Sponsor. Yes.
I ain't giving them $1. I'm not giving them shit.
Yeah.
They are the reason We are where we are today in this country because they don't have a backbone. They don't have a spine. They're afraid to stand up because it's never politically safe. Okay?
Pennsylvania was one of the states that Trump won in 2016, defying
Yes.
all, conventional wisdom and actually becoming successful. First time voting for a Republican president since 1988. So do you see, and sadly in 2020, it went blue, but do you see...
Well, it went blue on paper. Let's put it that way.
Yes, on fraud, yes. Because at the night of the election, Trump had a big margin. Now, first of all, voter fraud, how is that going to be addressed? Will, Philadelphia keep manufacturing as many ballots as they can to drown out the voice of most Pennsylvanians that are rural and outside of Philly and Pittsburgh? Or, is there a real movement now that is getting the suburbs back? I want your thoughts on Pennsylvania politics in that regard.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Number one, the election was stolen in Pennsylvania. It was stolen. And the GOP enabled it. They sat back. They didn't do anything. They didn't stand up and fight. They didn't have anybody at the polls. And actually, I just read an article today that it was the GOP and the language that they put in their slate of electors, okay, that went to D.C., that they would only challenge it if they had language in there that Trump would have to be successful in a lawsuit. And a GOP boss came out and said in the paper, now this is just being uncovered a year later, came out and said in the paper, well, we didn't want to get in the way of the Biden electors. And I'm thinking to myself, you bunch of pussies, okay? So one of the things we're going to do, now there was actually a bill that was signed in that allowed mail-in voting. Now with that mail-in voting, it was in there that you still had to have photo ID. There were still signature verification processes in place. The governor, the Democrat Secretary of State, and the Democrat Supreme Court unconstitutionally bastardized the whole bill, okay, to allow like non-verified signatures, to not pay attention to postmarks, to not have ID, and to count ballots up to 3 days after the election, or accept them up to 3 days after the election. One of the things I really want to do when I get back in office, number one, we're going to get rid of all of the bullshit Dominion voting machines. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we're going back to paper ballots, we're going back to IDs, and we're going back to signature verification. Now, I see the Democrats already saying, they're calling this voter suppression laws. Yeah. And they've been doing this now for over a year. I have yet to see one person, just one, on TV saying that their right to vote is being suppressed.
Right.
That's their narrative. Voter suppression laws, voter suppression laws. Republicans denying people the right to vote. Who are we denying the right to vote? Show an ID, verify your signature. Right. You need an ID to buy smokes, alcohol, drive a car, get on the bus, do whatever you got to do. Lease a place, buy a place. You mean to tell me that there are people out there that vote that don't have IDs for anything else in their lives?
It sounds pretty
That's
fraudulent.
What you're telling me? And I challenge them every day. Parade one person on CNN, on MSNBC, on CBS. Show me that one person who's having their right to vote being suppressed. And they can't do it. They can't do it.
Any other top priorities for you, Teddy, as you run your campaign and seek to better Pennsylvania?
Brother, obviously the election thing is a big one. And
school,
I'm straight
school
up
choice.
Okay?
You mentioned those two things: election integrity, school choice. Anything else?
Yes. Small businesses. We need to get in. We need to deregulate things to really help small businesses thrive. That's what we need to do. Pennsylvania has one of, and I know California does too, has one of the highest gas taxes in the country. Okay.
On.
Eliminate the gas tax. All right. And the other thing that we want to do is, and at least starting with seniors, is eliminate the property tax. Because these older folks, and again, when you're nailing them on property taxes, do they buy food or pay their property taxes? Do they buy medication or pay their property taxes? And that's where most of these foreclosures come on these homes, because they can't afford their property taxes. So the state comes in and takes their home. That's not right to do to people, especially folks who have worked their entire life and they were on a fixed income. Brother, I could go on and on and on and on. I think the big thing that we're up against right now is the culture war in this country. The culture war is huge. And if we don't win that, nothing else matters.
I agree with you. That's the core. That's the fundamental problem and the foundation of our issues.
Yeah,
oh, great. So what are you going to do to fight that culture war? And I've been doing that. You know, I try to use my voice to say, okay, not all minorities think the same way. Sometimes it's really basic things like that. But what can you do? What are you doing to create unity and getting people to wake up? Because there's also a lot of liberals that are drinking the Kool-Aid and are actually they can't even see their
and first and foremost, let's talk about the whole racism issue. Okay. Brother, when I was a kid, there was no racism in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? When I played sports, there was no racism on the team. When I was a cop and in the military, you never heard of it. Especially in combat. Like, dude, I don't care if you're black, Asian, Mexican, Martian. I don't care. As long as you're putting lead the same direction downrange I am, dude, you're my brother. And I'd die for you. Okay? But the left divides based on race. They divide based on, it's class warfare is what it is as well.
At the end of the day.
And you look at some of the comments that the left has made about different minority groups, okay?
Oh, they're the worst. They're the racist ones.
They are. Black people can't use computers. Black people don't have IDs, okay? This and that and everything else. You look at the Asian community. You look at what a lot of the Ivy League schools are doing to the Asian community. They are actually doing a different standard for Asian students for admittance than they are everybody else. And then you get me started on these transgender athletes, okay? So much for Title IX, so much for women being able to compete in sports without men and have their own sports programs, okay? So what we need to do is start reversing all of that, okay? Like, in Pennsylvania, if you're born a man and you want to compete in sports, you compete in men's sports. I don't care if you turned into Caitlyn Jenner 60 years later. Caitlyn Jenner would compete in men's sports.
And she agrees with that statement too.
Yes.
She just came out with something today.
Compete in men's sports. You know, the whole culture thing. And I you know where I think the liberals get a lot of this from? I think many of them grew up in their own little social economic bubble. Okay. They've never experienced different cultures, different religions, different races. And it's the like, oh, he's black, I'm going to pick him first to play on my basketball team. You know what I mean? Or, oh, he's Asian, I'm going to have that guy do my math homework. You know what I mean? So it's, brother, I want to finish with this story real quick because I know you got a hard stop. I was a scholarship athlete at West Virginia. And one of the guys on the team, his name was John Browning. He was about 6'6", 330 pounds, black as night, and built like a Greek god, okay? This dude, just his presence, put the fear of God into people. He went on, he played with the Kansas City Chiefs as a defensive tackle for years. But he was by far one of the most intimidating guys on the team. When I got there as a freshman, my locker was right next to John Browning's. Okay. So we get out of practice the first day, and I'm like, man, I got to break the ice with John. We get out of the shower. We're sitting there in front of our lockers. John pulls out the cocoa butter and starts rubbing it on. Okay. So I take it. I put 2 squirts in my hand. I start rubbing it on. John looks at me. He's like, the fuck you doing, white boy? I said, John, I just don't want to get ashy, brother. Dude, he lost it. It was the funniest fucking, he laughed so hard. And he's like, yo, bro, you're all right, man. You know what I mean? Brother, it was a day where we knew that there were differences.
Right.
But
you can have a sense of humor about it.
We can have a sense of humor. Like Blazing Saddles would never play today.
Not anymore.
Okay?
Yeah.
Archie Bunker would never play today. The Jeffersons would never play today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Or even a recent movie in the 2000s like White Chicks. That wouldn't play either.
Yes, exactly. And you look at guys like Jimmy Kimmel. Okay? Right. Jimmy Kimmel was on the Man Show, okay, where they like objectified women, okay? But now he's super liberal, and he's like, no, we can't. Everybody else is wrong, but everything I did in my life is right. We need to just erase. Morgan Freeman said it best. You know how we get rid of racism in this country? We stop talking about it.
Yep. You're giving life to something evil.
And what it does, brother, is everything. Like, dude, you can imagine how many times a day I get called a racist. Because I'm a white guy with a bald head.
You fit the demographic, my man, to a T.
Dude, I'm telling you, okay? Every day I get 100 comments or messages. You know, you're not so racist. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's like, man, every time that racism gets thrown around as an attack, just because of a difference on political views, it takes away from the actual racism that still does exist in this country.
Amen.
So mostly now, if there is an actual instance of racism, and this guy comes forward, he goes, man, I was discriminated against because of my color or my religion or my sex or whatever, you know what people are going to say? Yeah, right, whatever. We hear that every day.
Right. It desensitizes. It takes away.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great thoughts, Teddy. I would probably want to explore this with you further another time, but tell the audience your website, how people can volunteer, get a hold of what you're doing in your campaign.
Brother, it's TeddyDanielsPA.com. TeddyDanielsPA.com. You can find me on Facebook, Teddy Daniels, on Twitter, who also, they just unverified me, Teddy for PA. And I'm on Gab as well. And guys, I'm your America First. I guess you would call me a populist candidate.
I love it.
I'm a people, and I know, I hate political cliches. People over party. Like, I'm running to go to office to work for the people, not the party.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what we need to change. And we need to fix the whole political system. I'm big anti-corruption.
This is a great mission. You're my kind of candidate. Thank you for your time, Teddy. And let's stay in touch. Okay. Keep me posted on what you're doing.
Absolutely, brother. This was awesome.
And I want to see you become the next lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania. So keep on that goal and let's make some change.
You're the man, brother. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. Have a nice day. Take care.
We'll talk again, my man.
Bye-bye.